What's up, everybody? Welcome to the CanesInSight Daily Podcast, powered by Anijar and Levine Accident Attorneys. It is another Victory Monday. We'll continue to recap the Louisville win, see where Miami stands nationally after 7 games. Got a pretty good idea of who's who and what's what. We will break down where Miami is, some more news and notes coming out of the game as we get ready for FSU week. We're going to have a ton of stuff on that FSU game throughout the week. Had an instant reaction show to the Louisville game, a live show right after on Saturday with me and Pete. You can check that on YouTube, but we'll dive deeper today with a little more time to reflect and watch some film. First, I want to talk about some folks that are always reviewing close, and that is Anijar and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Anijar and Levine. Pete, hop in.
What's going on, D? 7-0, man. It's a great feeling. Obviously not a perfect performance, but 7-0, 7-0. And listen, we'll dive into a lot of the stuff here, who we want to see more of. Like you said, how Miami stacks up nationally in terms of the numbers, but undefeated, man. What else can you say?
Yeah, it was nice to see you at your house in fan mode with your friends, having fun, enjoying the win, not on the job like you are now, or trolling the group chats like, we see you in other
Listen, I don't troll. I'm always here for balance, and I see a lot of stuff online that agrees with some of the stuff I say. But no, man, it's listen, there's holes on this team without a doubt. And like, big picture, man, I really think that's something that really isn't being talked about enough, not to get too much into it right now, but we're not looking at a Miami roster that has like a bunch of guaranteed top-end talent in terms of the draft for this year. A lot of that talent's younger. Obviously, you have a Cam Ward who's in a good position to be a high draft pick. But overall, man, there's not like guaranteed first, second, third round picks on this team right now. So we understand the talent level's been significantly increased, but I think it's time that there should be more chatter about the coaching job that Mario Cristobal and this coaching staff are doing as a whole.
I agree with that, but I do want to say on the talent. Let's take NFL out. Let's look at college. Cam Ward's the best college quarterback in the country statistically and by a million measures. At worst, let's say he's top 3. Xavier Restrepo is one of the top 5 receivers in the country. I'm sorry. You can't get away from it at this point. Statistically, the impact he has on the game, all the things he does, blocking, everything else, put it all together. He is top 5 receiver in the country. You heard Michael Irvin on the It's What It Is podcast with Cameron and Mace. He said, he is one of us, meaning he's one of Reggie Wayne, Mike Irvin, the top guys. That's how they view Restrepo, because, and this was Irvin's words, Restrepo comes up to him before every game and says, "I'm going to get you one, Mike." And then sure enough, he does it. So in Irvin's mind, that makes a great player. And he said something that was very, to me, astute. And he talked about Cam Ward and Restrepo, again, to me, are easily top 5 players at their position. Probably the best quarterback receiver combo in the nation. I think they probably are the best in terms of the combo in the nation. I feel confident saying that. So he was talking about that, and he said, look, when the team really is down, everybody in the locker room knows, everybody in the stadium knows, everybody in the other team knows that 1 to 7 is going to get it done. That was the point Michael Irvin made. He said he could feel it. He's been at every game. He knows. He's been in those locker rooms. He was like that with Troy Aikman for the Dallas Cowboys for many years. So he knows the feeling. And he says that's what you see with Cam Ward and Restrepo, not just everybody else, but the team itself. That's who they look to in these close games. We saw it again play out last game when Miami really, really needed to respond to some hits that Louisville was sending. It was number 1 to number 7. Which, by the way, is a good segue to the plug. This is a plug, but I'm doing this up front because I want to make sure you guys hear about it, because this is really an event that you want to go to take your kids to today, Monday, 6 to 7 at the Miami Hurricane Team Store autograph session with the best quarterback wide receiver duo in the entire nation. That is Cam Ward, Xavier Restrepo at the Miami Hurricane Team Store right across the street from the school, right there on S Dixie Highway next to the Thesis Hotel. You do not want to miss this. Get there early, beat the lines. That is the place you want to be to meet 2 Cane legends. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, they're living legends because they're still playing, but you can already count numerous big play, memorable, iconic plays made by these 2 players in a very short time. We even got to FSU week and the chance to make some more. But Anyways, I agree, Pete. The coaching deserves credit, but I wouldn't mistake first-round talent in the upperclassmen ranks for college dominance, which is what you have with Ward, who I think will be a first-round pick, Restrepo, who could sneak into day 2. I'm not throwing that out of the possibilities. Elijah Roy, who I think will definitely be day 2 or day 1, and is to me the best tight end in the nation. An offensive line that is top 5 in the nation. And a running back crew. Maybe they're more day 3 type picks, but there's not that many college backs that are that big and can do what Damian Martinez did to that Louisville defense.
Oh, and look, I don't say it to down what's on the roster right now as much to say there's a lot more to come here. If Miami keeps stacking these top 5 classes like Cristobal has done the last couple of years, and obviously looking for a strong finish now, you get that high-end talent in there, and these one-possession games become 2, 3, 4 score wins. So I think it's more of a positive when I say that.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get you. We'll save the negative for Mike Ryan when he's here on Wednesday, and we can argue with him and talk about KJ Concepcion's what do you have, 50 yards breakout performance. So speaking of breakout performances, let's just go right into Sam Brown, who is the Beacon Adjusters player of the game. And before we even get into Beacon Adjusters, Pete, let's talk about Sam Brown, because not only did he have the statistical performance, but to me, what jumped out was that second big catch he had. 5 guys around him, breaks out of that with physicality and balance, and then runs for a while. He's fast, finishes the run with a stiff arm looking like Damian Martinez or Mark Fletcher or Restrepo, someone who's maybe known more for physicality. Boom, puts that guy in the dirt and really finishes that play. That, to me, on top of being, of course, an explosive play, which we know that Sam Brown can bring and did earlier in the game, the physicality, I think, was nice to see.
Yeah, and I think that's probably what would be holding him back in terms of NFL scouts and what they've seen from the first half of the season. We said when Miami got him that the yards after catch, was one of his best things that he brought to the table. And speed's one thing, but like you said, the ability for him to break that tackle, spin out of it, and get upfield and make a big play out of it was huge. And it just another example. He's a guy that Canes fans got on early in the season, had some drops. And he said it. He said football is a game of patience, right? After in his post-game interview there. And people forget we're just past the halfway point of the season here. So it's not going to surprise me, as we'll talk about here, some other guys who could potentially step up here. There's a lot of football to be played, right? So the story of the season is still being written, and he's a guy who stepped up in a big way, and I think is going to have a huge second half of the season here as he gets that confidence. Cam Ward continues to have that confidence grow in him, and look, I don't think there's going to be many complaints about him and his performance last weekend.
Yeah, Pete, pull up that pic with the 4 top receivers if you can, where they're like, I don't know, they're smoking cigars or what they're doing, celebrating a locker room. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, go find that. Maybe on Sam Brown's Instagram. So I listened to the Sam Brown post-game interview and the Restrepo post-game interview, and you could tell they really, really were happy for Sam Brown. They were happy for him as a person, the whole team. He was happy, and he felt like, look, this was a trio, meaning Restrepo, Horton, and Jacoby George, and he wanted to make it more of a 4-horseman deal, right? So he was very aware of that and conscious of it, and he said it in his postgame. He goes, look, we had a 3-headed monster. Now we have a 4-headed monster. And I think that was something that, just from a confidence standpoint, a sense of belonging, Horton, Jacoby George, Restrepo, those guys were all signees. They're actually a rarity because they're actually all Manny signees. Horton was a commit to Manny, the Cristobal sign. But those guys have been with the Canes for a while. So Brown was very much an outsider to that group. And a team that has a lot of transfers and a lot of new recruits. That's one of the older kind of tight units, is that top 3 receiving group. And Brown really, with his performance, was able to join the team mentally. And I think you're going to see that pay dividends from a confidence standpoint as we get deeper into the year. And he's going to give you something that when you play these faster defensive backs in the playoffs, Clemson, who we see the playoffs have better defensive backs than what we're used to seeing. Louisville had some good defensive backs as well, which he was able to beat. you're going to need a little more juice, a little more athleticism, and that's where Sam Brown, I think, can really help you.
Looking for the picture right now, DA. I can't seem to find it, but now we're on the topic of guys who had performances where, you know, they kind of shows them fitting in a little bit. How about Damian Martinez? I think the way that he ended that game was huge at the running back spot. You've talked about it a lot, and we talked about it on the post-game show. He's a game finisher for Miami, and it's got to feel good for him where Mark Fletcher was the starting running back in this game. He came out there the first drive, had a really good game of his own. But for him to go out there and finish the game the way that he did, and I'll play the clip now from that run here in a second. But man, that was that was big for his confidence as well. And you saw the smile on his face through the helmet on that last touchdown. So you could tell it was almost like a sense of relief for him.
Yeah, that jumped out. The fact that the big smile from the helmet and it continued through the sideline. It was like a genuine smile. It wasn't, it's funny. Like that was such a physical run that if I ever did anything like that, I'd be like smashing my chest, going insane just with the adrenaline, but he was very calm and just smiling. You could tell it was like almost a relief, like a monkey off the back to just be able to, all that pressure of all the, you know, the accolades and the expectations and the money. And
so Oregon State fans have been on him on social media all year. So
it reminds me when Steve Young won the Super Bowl. He was kind of more like relieved than excited because he had been dealing with so much around him. And he told his friend, like, take that monkey off my back. You know, that's similar with, I think, with Damian Martinez. It's the pressure, right? He was carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders and he relieves that. So it's a real smile of relief more so than aggression at such a physical run. And he threw up the U and continued to throw up the U all the way through the sideline, which to me, I like, shows us he's not just, you know, pointing to the name on the back. He's putting up the U. He's saying, I'm part of this team. Again, similar to Sam Brown. It's not so much I am here. It's more I am part of what we're doing here. The #1 offense in the nation, according to any kind of stat that you want to find. They are by far the #1 offense in the nation.
Winning helps all this stuff, man, because I think in years past, you know, we've seen guys, you could say, give up on the team. It's no shocker to say that, right? And when you're winning like this, it just kind of gives these guys motivation to say, man, we're winning. I want to be part of this, right? I can't just throw my head down and not give it all in practice. And that's one thing that, you know, I think this team also deserves credit for is coming back after this bye week, having strong practices, as Coach Cristobal mentioned multiple times throughout the week, and just keeping the thing rolling, man. So I think winning cures a lot of that stuff for sure.
No doubt about it. Winning, success, the fact that they had a players only meeting when they were winning, you heard, we talked about that during the week, but also Michael Irvin, I want to just go back to what he said to Cameron and Mace. He talked about that was really telling because in his experience, when teams are like 1-6, like FSU, who are about to play, you know, they're the ones having players only meeting, try to find out who's with whose girlfriend or what, and find out what the root of the problem is. This is a players only meeting when you're winning. And of course, we saw guys that, I don't know what was discussed. I'm sure people in the comments are going to say, well, where was it? Was the defense in the players only meeting? And we'll get to all that. But certainly Sam Brown and Damian Martinez, who had been questioned, are now showing that they are integral parts of what is statistically the #1 offense in the entire nation as a unit. It's not just a Cam Ward show. Cam Ward's the best player in the country, in my opinion. Cam Ward did not have anywhere near these stats, both individually and collectively as an offense, when he was at Washington State.
Before we get into the numbers, I want you to give your shout out to Beacon Adjusters, because after we named Sam Brown the player of the game there, we did not get to the spot. So
no, I appreciate you bringing me back here. So player of the game, Sam Brown, 2 extremely explosive catches, including a long touchdown, another one that set up a touchdown. We've been talking about him. He is now part of this unit. So excited for Sam Brown and excited for Beacon Adjusters. Beacon Adjusters, if your property has been impacted by Hurricane Helene or Hurricane Milton, Beacon Adjusters Group is here to help. With years of experience handling storm-related damage, we work tirelessly to ensure that you get the compensation that you deserve. From assessment to settlement, our team of trusted experts will guide you every step of the way. Don't take the aftermath alone. Let Beacon Adjusters Group restore your peace of mind. Call us today, 954-466-4224, 4224. You see that number, you know it's local, but they cover the whole state and really the whole Southeast. Anywhere that's affected by hurricanes, you can talk to Beacon Adjusters Group. All right, so let's talk about that offense, Pete, a little bit. Because I kept saying this is the #1 offense in the country. And let me just go through some of the numbers here. Pulling up a post from, if I'm looking for information, where am I going to go besides CanesInSight.com? 7 million posts and counting for free. Look at the free content you get on here. My man Orange Bowl Magic had his week 8 stat roll that he posts every week, posting numbers, which like the stats I use on the show, these are FBS versus FBS competition. You don't include the FCS games in the stats because what do they really tell you? We're now deep into the season. So you have conference games, you have big out of conference games, you have the cupcake out of conference games. You got a pretty good feel for where these teams are. Everybody's played at least one really big game. Yards per play. Miami's first in the nation, 8.10 yards per play. Just some context. That's almost a half a yard higher than Navy, which is number 2 at 7.64. That's a full yard higher than number 10. So you can be a top 10 team in yards per play and still be a yard behind Miami. That's a pretty sizable gap. That shows you how dominant and explosive and efficient this offense is. Yards per game, which I don't value as much as yards per play because it doesn't take pace and other things into account. I know Coach Dawson is a big yards per play proponent, as am I, but look, yards per game, Miami's first, 582 yards per game. That is 50 yards ahead of number 2, which is North Texas. 50 yards ahead of number 2, and that's North Texas. They're not playing in the ACC. So, just insane numbers. Points per game, number 1, 47 points per game. There's 8 teams in the country averaging 40 plus. We're 7 into the 40s. Again, this is not like something we ran at the score only against non-conference. This has been pretty consistent week after week with the Miami Hurricanes. Passing yards per game, 39.2. Again, only 11 teams averaging 300. We're just about at 400. So it shows you the gap. Passing completion percentage, 68.7%. Passing yards per attempt, 10.3. The only teams that are more Army and Navy, because when they throw, once a game, it's usually an explosive one. Everybody else lags behind. Passer rating, same thing. Third, passing TDs first. Clemson creeping up with 21. That's an explosive offense, which shows up in a lot of these categories, as does Syracuse. So if you talk about offenses that could potentially keep up with the Canes, those are 2 that Miami could theoretically play, will absolutely play. Syracuse at Syracuse in that Carrier Dome should be an explosive game. And then Clemson looms as the best team in the ACC besides Miami. Rushing yards per game, I think that's pretty interesting. 34th with 182.83 yards per game, which is a pretty decent number considering how explosive and how dominant our passing game is. We're still running for a decent amount of volume. And I think the reason why our rushing yards are so high, rushing yards per attempt, Miami is 11th in the nation, 5.54 yards every time. And look, Pete, those who've been listening to the show, whenever we talk about Damian Martinez and Fletcher and people saying, oh, they're not explosive enough, blah, blah, blah. What I say is big boy football, 225-pound backs. As you get later in the game, later in the season, they take over and they help you win championships. We've seen it for 20 years. I don't know what people have been watching in January for 20 years because I've been seeing Alabama, Georgia, teams like that, just body teams with big backs. That's what we did here against Louisville. Everybody saw the Damian Martinez run, just burying him, just completely embarrassing him. It's October 21st as we sit. It's only going to get colder. It's only going to get nastier. It's only going to get harder to pass when you're outside on the road. It's not going to matter when you have Damian Martinez and Mark Fletcher. So that's a very encouraging number. Again, rushing TDs is 22nd. So, that's really the offense here. I can go through 10-yard scrimmage plays, 20-yard, 30-plus, 40-plus, 50-plus, 60-plus, 70-plus. Miami's top 10 in all those. So just an explosive offense. Pete, anything as I run through those numbers so thoroughly?
No, look, I think it was an interesting switch there to have Fletcher come out first, and he was really effective early in that game. And he had the fumble, of course, but really busted things open a bit there. And a lot of these runs came after Louisville scored. So I think it kind of slowed things down a little bit and kind of eased Miami back into things offensively. But it's tough when it's not just like we've said this for a while. It's not thunder and lightning. You've got 2 big boys. So it's the defense. They don't have to just worry about one big guy to bring down. You have to deal with 2 of them. And then we'll talk about an A.J. Allen who provided a nice spark. We'll talk about him a little bit later on the show.
And they got juice too. I think you're going to see more 30-yard runs from both of them as the season continues to progress. Martinez had his against Louisville here. A couple more stats on the offense before I let it go, because I want to make sure I get to these. These are very, very important ones. 3rd down conversion rate. right? This is a classic stat that you look at to see the quality of an offense. Can you convert on third down? Also very important stat for your quarterback as well. Tells you how good your quarterback is. Listen to this. Miami's third down conversion percentage, first in the nation by a mile, 59.2%. Just for context, in the past 8 full seasons, so subtract COVID, which was weird and small sample, past 8 full seasons, the best number is 58%. Again, Miami's at 59%. And that was Bama in 2020. Actually, so you include the 2020 season. Bama in 2020, when you had Mac Jones, all those receivers, all those running backs, that offense was unreal. 58% third down conversion percentage. Miami's ahead of that. So if they can do that over the course of the full season, this will be the best third down percentage in a while. One thing I want to highlight that I think adds to that: tackles for loss allowed per game. So Miami's 11th in limiting tackles for loss. And I think people talk about our splits being tight. And I think our splits being tight does prevent you from exploding with these big runs. You talk about gap running scheme where you got guards pulling and you got maybe, you're trying to expose those gaps and run through big holes and make big plays. We still do have gap running plays in the offense, but when you have tighter splits, just, there's less space right between the offensive linemen, just as a practical matter. Maybe that hurts us with the big runs for Fletcher and Martinez, but one thing that Miami does not do is does not lose yards. Very good at avoiding sacks and really, really good at avoiding tackles for loss in general. So when you're constantly ahead of the sticks and you have a quarterback like Cam Ward with all these weapons, what happens on third down? Extremely tough to defend. We saw that against Louisville. We've seen that in pretty much every game on the schedule, which is why Miami's ranked so high in that stat. Yes, part of our third down success is Cam Ward and the different weapons that he can go to on third down, but also we are consistently ahead of the sticks. I think that makes a big difference.
Yeah, without a doubt, and there's going to probably continue to be debate about the splits, but I think you have a quarterback like Ward and you are in third and manageable and you feel pretty good about the situation. So,
yeah, now going on the defensive side, not going to be as good on some of these stats. Some of them are not going to – you're going to look at the stat and say, this really doesn't look that bad for our defense, knowing how we've played, particularly in conference play. Miami's defense started off well. Obviously, Ball State was terrible. Miami dominated them, although they almost beat Vanderbilt, right?
Yeah, I mean, they only lost by 10 points, so I don't know if they almost beat 10.
Well, they were leading for a second. I remember looking at they're tied. I remember looking at the score like, man, Ball State, what the heck's going on? But they're terrible. And Florida, Miami's defense did very well against Florida. We've now learned that Florida's maybe better than we might have thought they were, particularly in the offensive end, maybe closer to what we thought before the season, on offense at least. And Miami did do a good job stopping them. Conference play has been really bad. But just looking at the total yards per play allowed against FBS opponents, Miami's 42nd in yards per play, which is not that bad considering what we've seen on the scoreboard. Yards per game, 22nd. That's pretty good. Now, points per game, 58th. And I think if you just only include ACC in that, it gets a lot higher, obviously. Take away the shutout against Ball State, take away the 17 allowed against Florida, it starts creeping up pretty fast. 58th, but not very good. 65th in passing yards per game. Passing yards per attempt, not that bad, 32nd. Rushing yards per game allowed, 13th in the nation. So rushing yards per attempt, 35th. You're looking at this and you're saying, why do these numbers not match what my eyes are seeing? Because we all know the defense is a major problem. That's what's going to keep this team from being a truly great team unless it gets corrected here in the next few weeks. Here, look at this. 40-plus yard scrimmage plays allowed. Miami's 96th in the nation. That's your plays over 40, run or pass. 50-yard scrimmage plays allowed. Miami is 125th in the nation, 7 of those. We've seen them every week. So the story of the defense continues to me to be about explosive plays allowed. Now, red zone percentage isn't great in terms of red zone TD percentage, 62nd percent. So we're not holding guys to field goals, which I think is what you want to do when you have an offense that scores touchdowns like we do. But really, the explosive plays, the miscommunication, the tackling, the things that some of it has to do with athleticism, some of it has to do with just controllable things. Miami continues to lag behind the rest of the country.
Yeah, I think. All right, if we're going to look for a positive Saturday, I guess 3 for 12 for Louisville on third downs, but then 3 for 3 on fourth down, including that fake punt there, right? So I guess that's kind of null and void there. But yeah, I think the defensive line played relatively well the other day. I think only 3 sacks, but I think at times got in Shuck's face and affected things there. But secondary and the back end, a lot of things to work on there.
Yeah, you mentioned the third down conversion. I want to get to that because something a trend we're starting to pick up here. 7 games in, you could kind of see things that are not so small sample. Third down percentage allowed. Miami's 15th in the nation on defense.
It's really good.
Really good. 31.08%. Couple that with being the best third down offense by a mile. That's a good recipe. Fourth down percentage allowed. Miami falls to 80th. So they're 15th and third, 80th and fourth. 60% of fourth downs getting converted. You saw that against Louisville. They were 3 for 3, I believe, on fourth down, yep. And they were much less successful on third down. When you have an offense like Miami, teams are going to go for it on fourth down more often. They're going to be more aggressive because they just have to score. You saw in the NFL with the Colts, people would have play them differently because they knew Peyton Manning with the ball could do some damage. Remember, Bill Belichick famously went for it on fourth down on his 30-yard line one time, lost the game. Teams are going to play us differently. So that third down percentage really does not show where our defense is. And it's amazing. Just looking at these defensive numbers, there's a lot to tell you. This is at least a good defense, not a great defense, but at least a good defense. Pass rush, we're 14th in the nation in sacks per game. And that's with Ruben Bain missing half the year. He's getting a sack every game. He suits up. He had 10 pressures on Saturday. Rushing yards per attempt, 35th, 13th in rushing yards. Like, we stopped the run. We could rush the passer. Why are we struggling so much? I think the secondary just needs to do a better job. And this is like Captain Obvious, but the explosive plays. This goes to the run defense too. The run defense, I think, on a down-to-down basis is very good, but they do allow an explosive run pretty much every game. Virginia Tech, they had an explosive run. Florida, they had an explosive run. Louisville had an explosive run with Isaac Brown. California, I don't think had an explosive run, but you had that one
screenplay.
The screenplay killed you. Same thing with USF. So those obviously make a big difference, even if you're good every other play. It's an interesting statistical picture on the defense, but the bottom line is this is not a very good defense right now. It is probably below average in terms of Power 4 teams, and Miami needs to clean that up. Look, you can win a lot of games being this way. Oklahoma with Lincoln Riley, Washington last year. But to win a championship, you're going to have to get closer to where LSU 2019 was on defense, which was not great, but okay. And then, of course, paired with the best offense in the country.
Yeah, I mean, look, bend don't break is a phrase that we've heard over the years, and hopefully they can get more to that, right? And you can kind of get death by 1,000 cuts as opposed to these big plays downfield, because those are really the big plays. The thing about the explosive D is it's like takes the wind out of the sails, right? Luckily, the offense didn't flinch the other day and just kept coming right back at them and keeping the lead for the most part, but can really be demoralizing to a team when you have plays like that. And again, reared its ugly head on Saturday. The kickoff return, I think, is another one that was a big wild card, which could have called a holding there. Obviously, was a missed tackle as well, but can't have those, man. It really changes the course of the game.
And just one thing real quick. Now, this is a smaller sample size because it's only ACC opponents, and really the ACC, we played Virginia Tech, we played Cal, and we played Louisville. Only 3 games.
Yep. So
small sample size here. 3 games is a small sample size, but if we're just talking about ACC competition, then you look at at Miami being closer to 121st in scoring defense, 110th in yards per pass allowed, 101st in yards per rush allowed. I mean, the 3 ACC games are really what's dragging Miami down statistically, and of course, that's meaningful because you're trying to win an ACC title. It's not like you're playing, elite teams, but you're playing teams that are at least bowl teams and decent. So Miami needs to do a better job, obviously, on the defensive end. I'm not breaking any news there. Some of it's just recruiting. That's why DJ Pickett, Ben Hanks, Jabari Antoine, Hilton Stubbs, why these are key players, commits, and targets, all of whom will be visiting this weekend for the FSU game. We'll talk a lot of recruiting as the week goes on. You got to recruit better. You need better talent. But also, you got to do a better job controlling the controllables.
Without a doubt. And we'll wrap things up here with kind of who we want to see more of down the stretch. We kind of did something like this the other day, but we have even more of a sample size to look at. Before that, though, wanted to talk about our friends at Asset Dash, the best portfolio tracker and rewards program in crypto, where you can do everything from tracking your investments, earning rewards, and now buying over 1,000 different cryptocurrencies on Solana natively through the app. You see the QR code right here. Scan that, download Asset Dash, and enter the code CANES, all caps, at sign up to receive an upgraded premium Asset Dash Gold membership free for life. Again, CANES, all caps. This is a limited time offer. Download Asset Dash for all of your portfolio tracking needs, cryptos, NFTs, stocks. If you invest in something, Asset Dash supports it. So D, looking at what I just said right now, we continue to see different guys getting more snaps, less snaps. There's going to continue to be this as we get to the end of the season here. Let's talk about some guys that we just talked about, the defensive side of the ball, which we'll get to shortly. But for me, I'm looking at AJ Allen, the impact that he made there in that second half, comes in that series and really shows you his dynamic ability. We talk about these big backs. We talk about the Damian Martinez and Mark Fletcher effect and how they wore the defense down. And I think AJ Allen coming in there was really nice. They threw him the ball, got like 7 yards on the reception as well. But his ability to break away from the defense, make a guy miss, his quicks, he scores the touchdown, so he finishes the drive off as well. But really, really liked what I saw from him the other day. And again, I want to give him credit because comes in here last year, probably doesn't have as big of a role as he would have thought when he transferred over. Doesn't transfer out in the offseason when you know they're bringing in another big time back. Then comes in this season, what early on wasn't getting all that many touches. Was it the Ball State game that he had the big touchdown, or was that FAMU? I forget. But has some big moments there. And then now in a critical moment comes in, was that late third quarter that he had that drive. So, I mean, for him to stick with it, I give him a lot of credit.
Yeah. I've always heard great kid, great worker, really cares about being good. You can see some of that reward itself here. He's getting bigger, he's getting faster, and he's sticking with it. And when he gets his chance, he's ready to rock. You know, I'm a huge MLB guy. I think baseball right now, to be honest with you, as far as professional sports, is the #1 professional sport right now with the new rule changes and the talent. NFL, not enjoying the product very much these days. NBA has been going downhill for a while, except for my beloved Heat. So, I mean, going a little bit off topic, but trying to tie it in here, MLB, Dodgers, Yankees, can't wait to watch with my son. But one thing you notice in the MLB playoffs is bullpens are so good that the days of the starting pitcher going deep into games, Josh Beckett pitching on 3 days rest and winning the World Series with a complete game shutout, that's gone. Kind of like with the way the running back position is, where you have the workhorse back, that's really dying down. Because if you could have a starter who's very, very good and then just hit you with these fresh bullpen arms that can dominate you and give you different looks, it's just hard for a hitter. And if you're counting outs like you are in a series that is a postseason series and you really need every single bit of edge you can get, you're trotting out those bullpen arms, and your start maybe only goes 5 innings. Football, of course, every win's important, you know, especially the playoff hunt like Miami's in. So bringing in a guy like an AJ Allen with a different look, who's fresh, who's hungry, who has something to prove, I think caused a lot of problems for a defense. We even talked about Jordan Lyle and Chris Johnson, who didn't play really very much in this last game. Certainly, I don't think they played at all at running back. I think that all their snaps were a kick return, that unless I'm missing something. So huge opportunity for AJ Allen. He delivered with a big touchdown run and just a lot of just urgency and great play running the football. Miami's running back room, I think, is going to peak as we get into the ACC championship, hopefully, as we get into these games to get you to the ACC championship. And again, hopefully in the playoffs. These guys are getting better. They're fresh as a daisy. AJ Allen, big part of that. He can start for a lot of teams in the Power Four. Yeah,
and they're running for nearly 200 yards a game, had 222 on Saturday. So it's funny, the sort of narrative that we've had. I think the passing game has just been so explosive that we forget that they're picking up 6+ yards a carry on the ground, and it all ties into the offense's success there.
No question about it. No, the good call though with the AJ Allen. So, you know, for me, if I'm trying to pick someone who I want to see more of, and this is not rocket science, a lot of people are saying the same thing. Zaquan Patterson, right? So he had an incompletion. Cristobal talked about it specifically on the Joe Rose show this morning. He thought it could have been a fumble potentially, maybe if the guy had held it for like just a second more. But a perfect form tackle, explosive. You see the talent on something like that. That's not something that surprised people that have been watching Zaquan Patterson since he was a young player. Always been a really good tackler, always been a very explosive tackler. I compared him to James Williams a little bit coming out, but the big difference between James Williams and Zaquan Patterson to me is that because Zaquan is not 6'5", he just can bend. He could sink into his hips a little bit, bend his knees, and explode forward just a little more than James Allen can, just by simple physics. He just
James Williams.
What did I say? James Allen?
James Allen.
You know, I can never get rid of you, Pete, because if I did, I'd say the wrong name every single show. James Williams, he is tackling. People said he was soft. I don't think he was. He's obviously playing linebacker in the NFL right now. But I think one thing that hurt him was just open field. He just was the height. I mean, it's hard to bend down and tackle in the open field when you're that tall. Zaquan is big for a safety. He's about solid 6 foot, and he's going to be 200 plus pounds, but he can really get low, really explode, and he's very physical. So I think you saw some of that with the tackle, incomplete on the tight end. I think you'll see more of it. We've had just major problems with angles, with miscommunications, with tackling in the secondary. I think at least from a tackling standpoint, Zaquan's going to solve that problem, or at least improve the overall tackling. He's a phenomenal blitzer. You saw him blitz once against Kyron Drones in the Virginia Tech game, late in the game, key spot. I think he can do more of that, especially as you prepare going into the game with it in mind, not just throw him in there. I think that game you had injuries. Excuse me. I don't know if it was Jaden Harris got hurt in that Virginia Tech game, and Marquise Williams, I think, got beat up too. So you had Zaquan come in at that point. I think you could see more of Zaquan during the week, getting him ready to blitz, getting him ready to do those things, and he can make a major impact on the game with his talent. He'll make mistakes, but look, when you're 125th and 50-plus yard plays allowed, you're making mistakes at safety right now.
Yeah, and he's a good tackler. At least what we know about him, what we saw from high school, and what we've seen early on. And I think that's been arguably the biggest issue with the secondary is their physicality in terms of tackling the open field, and that's something he does well. So listen, there's already busting coverage. I said this a couple of weeks ago. If there are going to be coverage busts and communication errors and things of that nature, and you're playing guys who are more experienced, then let's take those lumps with a younger guy.
Yep, no question about it. So P, who else you want to see?
I mean, just looking at the secondary, I would throw a Robert Stafford in the mix at cornerback. You're looking for someone else to step up there. I know he got a few snaps the other day on the defensive side of the ball, but again, you're gonna take your lumps there already, as we've seen. Let's get a guy out there with some speed and some coverage ability from what we know, right?
Yeah, look, and Frederick's been playing a lot already, so you haven't heard of him because they don't throw his direction. I mean, how many completions has Frederick allowed? Because it's amazing. You know he's playing because you look at Trenton Breeze's stories on CanesInsight.com about snap counts, and you see his name pop up quite a bit. But then how many times do you see him during the game? I'm pulling it up now. So cornerback O.J. Frederick played 49 snaps. I mean, did you notice him at all?
I haven't noticed him really much all season.
Yeah, it's amazing what he's doing as a true freshman. So true freshman doesn't mean you're necessarily giving up a lot of plays and you're going to see the back of the jersey all day. Stafford has a year experience, had an injury last year, a sickness that I think cost him a chance to play earlier than maybe we wanted him to play. So we'll see what he can do. The secondary is wide open, but I definitely think we could see some new faces there. And I'd throw in, for my take, I'd say Justin Scott, who's played already pretty much every game this season. I think you can see more of him and Armando Blunt, the future of that defensive line room. I'm watching Georgia play Texas, and one of the huge differences between Georgia's defense and Miami's is just those big bodies up front. We have some very good defensive ends. Simeon Barrow's playing at a high level, but just the young 5-stars that you see all over the place on those defensive fronts. I think Blunt and Justin Scott are those kind of guys. Let's fast track the process so by next year they're reliable parts of this front seven. You're playing Georgia Tech, who can hurt you. That's probably one of the teams you're worried about if Haynes King is healthy, just because their run schemes are so complex. But FSU, Duke, these are not very good offenses. You could take some lumps with your younger players, get them some experience.
So, D, we have basketball media day today. So excited about that. Canes hoop season starting next week, I believe, October 30th against St. Leo's at home exhibition. So we'll have all the coverage. Keep it locked on CanesInSight. We're going to be doing like we did for the football media day, have all those interviews up, video stuff, written content. So it's a new chapter in Canes hoops, some familiar faces, but a lot of new portal guys and some exciting freshmen. So excited to get to know them a little bit today. And again, keep it locked on CanesInSight for that coverage. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel. It's Florida State week, man. We talked all about Louisville today on this show, but we'll dive into the dumpster fire that is happening up there in Tallahassee.
Yeah, I'm not going to miss any chance to take shots at them. But look, it's still a big game. You still have to come prepared. They're going to be chippy. They're going to be trying to injure you. They're going to be trying to do a lot of things. So Miami's going to need to keep their composure, treat them like every other opponent. And I think if they do, we could be having a fun show on Monday. But got to do the same things that got you to this point. Same things Miami has done to get them to the top 10. Do them every week. Treat FSU like they're a good team. And then on Saturday, they'll look like a very, very bad team.
All right, everyone, go Canes. Again, like and subscribe. We will see you all tomorrow.
Go Canes.
Yeah, this an insight to the Canes, and you know we ain't playing no games. Joaquin said dominate, so that's what we do. Home of the legends and 7th floor crew, down in Miami where hurricanes brew. You here for the rumors, we bring you the news, cause it's all about the you, and nobody do it like CanesInSight. 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 It's CanesInSight.